Hello, welcome to Truth and Wellness. We're so glad that you've joined us today. We have with us a special guest. He is from the Northwest and has a story to share with us that I know will be encouraging and helpful for your walk with Jesus. So today we want to welcome Pastor Byron Corbett. Byron, thank you for joining us and coming not a long ways anymore, but you've just recently moved here, haven't you? So
I have,
yeah.
and just thank you so much for the opportunity to join you here on the program today, Gail. And actually, my story goes back farther than Spokane, Washington. It goes back into the North Country, Canada, where I was born.
Okay.
First in a family of 5 kids in a little town called Hope in British Columbia.
Well, wow, that's a neat name for a town, isn't it?
It
So
is.
you have a lot of hope, I bet, bringing that to a lot of people. You were born there, so you are Canadian then, or
I
dual
am.
citizenship maybe?
No, I don't have. I'm what they call an alien.
You're
so
an
if you
alien.
wonder what a little
No.
alien with green eyes, you know, looks like.
Okay.
I guess you've seen an alien now.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Well, why don't you begin by sharing a little bit about your background, your parents and family, how you grew up. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
I'd love to do that. Yeah,
Okay.
it was a really good experience growing up. As I said, first in a family of 5 kids, which means that you like being the oldest until you're about 21, and then after that it's downhill because then everybody's bugging you and, oh, you're the old guy on the block. But
Right.
we were a really active family, pretty energetic, with 5 kids running around. My poor mother, I can only imagine. We grew up pretty active, really active in church. Went to public school most of the time because it was such a small town, we didn't have a church school.
I see.
But when I got to 6th grade, my folks and 2 or 3 other families got together and decided they would start a church school.
Wow.
So we had a 1-room, 8th grade church school, and there were 8 kids the
I was going
first
to say,
year.
how many students? I bet it was
8 kids,
wow,
and
though,
4
that's
of them, half of the school was from my family. So that was pretty fun. But what was really good about that was, although I had always loved the Lord, I never really made a full commitment to Him in my life. And I think it was that Christian environment, being in church school, that really helped me get to that point in my life. And when I was in grade 8, I gave my heart to Christ, and I was baptized, which was a huge moment in my life.
You made that commitment and chose to follow Jesus.
That's right.
That's great.
That's right. And been very, I really think that changed the course of my life. And I don't like to think about where I might have ended up had I not made that choice.
Well, they say that, making that choice by the age of 12 is very important, that even if you kind of wander, that you kind of come back to that, that one
true.
decision that you made.
God had grace because I was 14, so even, I was a late bloomer, but He's patient with us.
That's good. Now tell me a little bit about what your father did, and because I understand you can work some equipment. Tell us just a little bit about that.
No, I feel like I really had a childhood and growing up that gave me a lot of breadth of experience. And my dad was in construction. He and his father had started a ready-mix concrete company, and then his father kind of stepped away, and my dad carried on. And so growing up, I was always around heavy equipment, and by the time I was 10 years old, I was driving front-end loaders, and then as soon as I got old enough, I got my professional driver's license, and I could drive the mixer trucks, and so that's kind of what I grew up doing. And there are times when I drive by a construction site and feel like hopping out of the vehicle and going joining them. Yeah,
you're ready to work with them.
That's right.
That's great.
Right.
That's great. Now you finished 8th grade. And you went into high school. Was there a church-related high school there, or where did you attend high school?
No, we didn't have a church-related high school. And so at that point, we were trying to make a decision. Should I leave home, 14 years old, go away to a boarding school, or should I stay home? And, I think there are some situations where it may be good for kids to leave home. But if you've got a good home, brothers and sisters, dad and mom together and all that, boy, I just don't think it's the right thing. So we decided to stay, but that choice was then to go back to public high school. And the thing that happened to me in public high school, which I'm sad to say, is that I did lose my walk with Jesus Christ. It just kind of was a slow, it catches up with you without knowing. The environment of the world can overtake you without you even being aware of it.
And especially young people too. When you're young and vulnerable, it seems like, and can be easily influenced. It's hard, isn't it?
You're right, Gail. And so it was, I got into my senior year and I had quit reading my Bible. I'd quit praying. I was still going to church because my family was, but it was just a dead experience. There was nothing in there for me. And my heart was really kind of starting to go after other things. Now, the mercy of God in all of this is that although I drifted away from Him, I never got into the party scene, drugs, alcohol, girls. I never got into any of that. So He kind of held His hand over me, if you will, even though I was kind of the son that wandered away. So
it was kind of like God just kept you in a holding pattern. Kept you in His care, but you weren't a fully devoted disciple of Jesus.
No, I guess at that point you would say my Christianity was really just a shell.
I see.
There was no heart experience there. It was just the culture. My family was going to church. I was around church people, and unfortunately, I think a lot of times a lot of Christians can get into that kind of a mode. But graduated from high school and then needed to decide, what am I going to do next? And so that's a hard time of life, trying to figure out what is your career path going to be? What are you going to do for the rest of your life? And my parents always said, we want you to do what God wants you to do. Well, that didn't help me a whole lot, And, I had a lot of my uncles and aunts had gone into different branches of medicine, dentistry, a lot of professionals, and so I decided that I wanted to go into, I didn't do any praying about it. My mom and dad said, find out what God wants you to do. Well, no, I did what Byron wanted to do. And what did Byron want to do? Byron wanted to make lots of money and have lots of fun. So medicine is how to do that,
That seems to be the choice, isn't it? Yeah.
So I left home, went away to college. It was a Christian college, and I started out pre-medicine.
Okay.
Either trying to decide between cardiology or orthodontics. And those are two very different things.
They are very different, yes.
Well,
okay.
the deal with that is cardiology was interesting to me just from the standpoint of I thought it'd be so fascinating to do heart surgery, and wow, what a thing. The orthodontic side of it came from my dad's brothers. He came from a family of 7.
Oh my!
And 4 boys, 3 girls. All 3 of my dad's brothers graduated from Loma Linda University as orthodontists.
Okay.
And so they all lived in Canada within 3-4 hours of each other. So we got together quite a bit. And as a kid growing up, I remember seeing my uncles. And what I knew about orthodontists was this: they only worked 2 weeks out of the month. So they had lots of time to play, and they had lots of money to buy the toys to play with. And so I'm like, I can do that life.
That looked very appealing, yes.
Yes.
I can understand
that.
Did. That's great. So that was the track you were on.
Exactly.
But something happened. Tell us about that experience.
I'd love to do that. What happened was, praise the Lord, during my freshman year of college, I really got to a point where I met Jesus Christ anew in my life. I had an incredibly deep reconversion experience where I found Christ as a personal friend once again, and that just brought a whole new level of excitement into my life. And I think I really grasped, maybe for the first time, that salvation really is a completely free gift. And Jesus took care of it all when He died for me on Calvary's cross. And then as I understood that more, then I realized that not only was the gift of being saved something that God's grace would do for me, but beyond that, if I would just get out of the way and let Jesus have permission in my life, He would then begin to change me and help me overcome sin and character flaws, and so that not only is being saved a gift, but victory is a gift that Christ will give in our lives too. And so as that all came fresh into my life, I was just like, wow, and I just became so passionate about walking with the Lord And so that was just a real, a real big spiritual upswing that my life took at that point.
So I'm guessing then that you had to re-examine the goals that you had and the direction you were headed with that American dream. So tell us about how you, I think you asked God a question, didn't you? Or
you're very right. I did have to re-examine. And at first, I wasn't thinking about that. But as I'm in this new walk with God, reading my Bible, praying every day, and wanting to be involved in serving Him and beginning to witness and get involved with lost people, one day, this question pops into my mind, and I think it was God asking me the question. I was like,
that sounds right, yes.
So Byron, if you really believe that God has a plan for your life, maybe you should ask Him what that plan is. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
So that began a several month process of really seeking to know God's will in my life. A lot of praying, but praying is not a substitute for thinking. God gave us a brain, and I think He wants us to use it. And so, I did my lists of pros and cons, and what are my interests, what do I enjoy, what do I not enjoy. I talked to godly people, said, what do you see looking at my life, any particular areas that you think I should go on. And through a lot of heart searching, through a lot of laying things on the altar, about 3 months later, I came to this conviction, which I fought for a while because I didn't like what I heard from God. God was saying, I want you to take ministry and be a pastor.
Okay.
Which was not the American dream.
No, it was, no. Let's see, income, work schedule, you just kind of, whole package.
Yeah.
But you kind of went from one heart cardiologist to, working with the hearts of people, right?
Thank you for pointing that out. And the thing that I realized that really helped me, I think, make that change was that I knew, here's what I know about God. First of all, He's an incredibly good God.
He is,
and He wants the very best for His children. And if we will just let Him lead, His will for our lives will make us the happiest and the most blessed that we could ever imagine. And so knowing that helped me say, all right, God, I accept, I'll make that surrender. And so I did. The next year, my sophomore year of college, I changed my major to theology.
To theology. Yeah. So you took a big step, didn't you?
I did.
That's pretty cool. And yet, and really what you were saying is, I trust you, God.
Yes.
Because I feel like you're leading me here. And so now, now you're taking theology. You graduate with a theology degree, am I right? And where did you head? Where did God take you then?
Well, let me jump back if I can a little bit. After my second year of theology, I'd grown up reading these mission stories about, missionaries that went into the jungles of Africa or wherever, and the miracles God worked there to bring lost people to know Christ. And so I'd always had this, what a great thing it would be to do that. And so a friend of mine and I, after our second year of college, we went overseas to be student missionaries. And we ended up on an island so remote that most Filipinos don't even know it's part of the Philippines. And we literally lived in a bamboo hut up on stilts.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
And with no running water and no electricity. And we spent a year there working with the people of the island. And and at the end of that year, we felt so convicted about the needs that were there that we said, how can we go back home? So we stayed an extra year. In the same place? In the same place.
So you didn't move to another island or another, so you stayed right there?
Same bamboo hut.
Wow.
So then I did come back from there, and the Lord brought me out here to Southern Adventist University, where I finished my theology degree.
Okay.
And then after that, he took me out to Washington State, where I began my pastoral ministry. Okay. And you pastored one or two churches there for a while. I believe you also planted a church. Tell us a little bit about that. We did, yeah. I pastored two different districts. Nearly 8 years I spent in Washington State. Okay. And the first district I was in, the Lord really blessed it with a lot of growth and baptisms, and church attendance came way up. And it was just really a fun time. And then the conference, I was not ordained yet, and so the conference felt like before you get ordained, you need some more experience. So they moved me into a new district, and the Lord continued blessing there. And there was a part of the city. This was in Tacoma.
Okay.
And there was a
Tacoma,
part of
Washington.
Tacoma, Washington.
Yes.
That's right. And there was a part of the city that really didn't have a church in it, and we felt a burden to kind of bring a presence there, and so we set some plans in motion, did a lot of groundwork, did a lot of training with a core group of church planters, and then we had the opportunity to have Kenneth Cox come and do
who is an evangelist.
Yes, who is an evangelist, and to do a major outreach series into the area. And the whole plan of that was to take the people that came to the Lord through that effort, and then use the core group and then start a church with that, which is what we did.
Wow, that's exciting, isn't it?
It
start
is.
With a whole group.
Just about wore me out though, because the church that I was pastoring there had nearly 400 members, and then and I was the only pastor. There was nobody else on the staff, and then we planted another church, and so I created a 2-church district for myself, and I was the only pastor there.
You just made a lot of work for yourself, didn't you?
Yeah.
But what a joy. It's kind of like Jesus said, I have food that you don't, when his disciples came and said, are you hungry?
Right.
No, I just won somebody to Christ. That's the food, isn't it? It keeps you going, doesn't it? It
really is.
That's cool.
And somewhere in there is where I met my wife.
Ah, yes. I was going to ask you about that. I think you're married and you have a family now.
I
do.
do.
Tell us a little bit about her and how many children you have.
Yeah, my wife has her master's in public health, and she had moved to Olympia and was the adult immunization coordinator for the state of Washington.
Wow.
And so she was doing a lot of traveling, and in her travels she was looking for a church to attend, and came to my church, and there was this single pastor.
My goodness.
So anyway, one thing led to another, and we eventually really felt the Lord leading in that, and so we married just at the time that I felt God calling me to transition out of pastoral ministry into a full-time evangelistic ministry with Amazing Facts.
Okay.
And so we kind of moved out of our home, packed, put stuff in storage, took what we could take in suitcases, and went on the road.
Okay. So you just lived from spot to spot, to place to place. Then.
Every 6 or 7 weeks, we were in a new city with a new church doing evangelism. Yeah.
So you were with them now, how many years was that?
I was with Amazing Facts for 7.5 years.
7.5 years.
And so our oldest 2 daughters, we have 3 daughters, but our oldest 2 daughters were born while we were traveling, living out of suitcases.
Okay. So they don't have memories of a backyard that they were in when they were real little, right?
No. They got that in Spokane, but and so what happened was my wife and I really enjoyed what we were doing. However, as the kids were coming along, she really had the nesting instinct and really wanted to settle down. And then as our oldest daughter was getting closer to school age, we could see that transition coming. So we started praying about what God would have us do next.
Right.
And He did open the doors for us to move back into pastoral ministry. I was in an area of Spokane called Spokane Valley. They've actually kind of split into 2 cities, but it's they're sister cities, and so the church there has 800 members, and one of my values that I wanted to give my kids, which was part of the struggle of being a pastor, is you move all the time.
I know.
And I wanted my kids to be able to grow up in one spot, and have that stability.
Yes.
So when we came to Spokane and were interviewing with the conference and so on, one of the questions we asked them was, if we would like to stay in our church for 20 or 25 years, do you have a problem with that?
Can we stay, please? Yes.
And I have to give the president credit. I don't know if it took him off guard, that question, but he did say, he said, if the church is doing well, we're open to that. We'd let you do that. And I said, well, good, because that's what I'm planning on doing. I want to raise my kids here.
Okay, well, obviously you're not in Spokane, so that is not going to happen, right? So
no.
Tell us, how God worked in your life to bring you here to Madison, Tennessee. What happened?
I got this phone call from Myron Johnson one day, and he said,
now he's the head elder.
He's the head elder at Madison Campus
yes.
Adventist Church, and I didn't know him from the Man in the Moon, and but he said, I'm from the Madison Campus Seventh-day Adventist Church, and we're looking for a senior pastor, and just you've made the first cut. So I said, well, what was that all about? Well, he said, we've been listening to people's sermons and so on, and you've passed that test.
Oh boy, so, okay, all right.
So he said, would you mind if we put your name on a list? And so I said, yeah, I guess you could do that. Because my name's been on other lists, and I know, you get 50 names, and it's a big list and all this stuff, so I didn't think much more about it, really.
Right.
And then, David Hartman from the conference called and asked me the same question and talked a little bit more with me, and at that point, one of the questions he asked me was, are you ready to move? And I said, no. Oh, boy, okay. So, I said, here's what I can tell you. I said, we don't want to move. All I can tell you is we want to do what God wants us to do. Sure. But if you're asking me, do I want to move? No, I'm very happy here. And so I figured that would be the end of that.
You thought that was it. You thought God was just going to leave you there for 20 years like you wanted. Yeah. And so what changed your mind? What happened then?
Well, it was just kind of a process that unfolded. I told my wife what was going on, and I told my associate pastor, and just I had mentioned that so that he would be aware. But then I know the search process takes time, and they're going through a lot of other names, and so weeks go by and you don't hear anything else, and so you're like, okay,
kind of just put it out of your mind, and it's not going to happen, right?
And then there's another phone call that comes through and asking a little bit more. Okay, so we talk a little bit more, right? And then, don't hear anything more for several weeks. And so you think, okay, no worries, carry on. And then we got a phone call from David Hartman again, saying that the list had been narrowed down to the top 2 or 3 candidates, and we were one of them. And they'd like to arrange for a Skype interview.
Oh, so you didn't even fly here then or anything?
Not at that point.
Not initially.
No,
oh my. Okay, so that was.
So we set up the Skype interview, and we did that, and then don't hear anymore for weeks, and so I have to be honest with you. I never really thought that this was really going anywhere. I didn't have a sense that God was necessarily leading in this at that point, and I get this phone call from David Hartman. And he says this. He says, well, we've done our Skype interviews. We can't decide. There's 2 of you that we can't decide between. We want you to come out for a live interview. Would you and your wife do that? And I have to say that's the first time when I stopped and I said, oh, this is getting serious.
Yes. Yeah.
And I called my wife up and I said, honey, they want us to come for a live interview. This is getting really serious. Maybe I should just call up and take my name off the list. Oh my,
okay, got that close, huh? And almost.
Really, I did, and I said that to her, and I said we've really got to do some talking and praying when I get home. So. So we did.
You came and you did the interview. And the invitation came, didn't it?
I was hoping for the easy way out of this, Gail.
You thought it would be, yes, yeah. So
I was hoping for the easy way out, which would be we're going to ask somebody else,
right?
But that didn't come, and so then I knew that I was going to have to wrestle through with God and find out what His answer to that was, and it was difficult. It really was, because in looking at the congregation I was with, and in looking at Madison Campus congregation,
the opportunities
there really was no human way to evaluate what God's will is.
Right.
There were good things about both.
Right.
Both just really
Right.
incredible congregations, and
Right.
both incredible opportunities for God to be
Sure.
working and do. And so there was really no human way to analyze that. And I went into kind of a real dark time for a couple of weeks because I couldn't figure it out.
Trying to make that, to hear from God and hear what He had to say.
But and we probably don't have time to get into the whole story now.
Yeah.
But just to say that at the end of that process, God unmistakably said, "Byron, I want you to go to Nashville."
Wow!
So,
And you packed everything up, the kids and everything, and made your way to Madison, Tennessee.
Yes.
Well, Pastor Byron, it has been a real pleasure to hear your story, a real blessing. And maybe you would like to just share a thought or two with those who are viewing about how God has brought you to where you're at.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, Gail, because I really do feel in a way we've just been talking about me, and it's really not about me at all. It's about Jesus Christ, because I would not be here if it were not for Jesus Christ. I think there are things in my life, looking at just who I am as a person, that if I didn't have the sanctifying influence of Jesus Christ in my life, I would not be a person you want to know. That's just my frank assessment. But what I really want to share with our viewers today is that I have never regretted making a decision to let Jesus Christ have the lead and the control in my life, to give over my will and to do His will. God doesn't promise smooth sailing and no challenges, no heartaches, but when you are in the center of God's will, you know that you've got God backing you, and He will see you through everything that comes, that there's nothing the devil can throw at you that you cannot face and that God has not already made provision for. That's what I've experienced in my life, and I just want to encourage you to take that next step, whatever it looks like in your life, whatever it means, surrendering on the next level to Jesus and asking Him to take you and put you where He wants you to be and use you.
Well, I want to thank Pastor Byron for being with us today and his incredible story of how Jesus led him from wanting to be a doctor, but brought him to a doctor of hearts, and the real doctor of hearts. And so we want to thank you for joining us today. We know that truth is important to you, and so is wholeness. So please join us again on Truth and Wellness. I'm Gail McKenzie, and I've been your host. Thank you.